Hi guys. At the end of last week, I released a video where I presented to you some wild allegations in the Sincere and Classic Pettis, aka Orrin and Orson West case. Well, in just a few short days, we now know those were not allegations, nor were they conspiracies. They were 1,000% true. So in the affidavit of Jacqueline and Trazelle West, it clearly states that these two monsters, under their leadership and through threats, induced a minor to help in the death of these two helpless children. Now, who were the minors or minor involved? And it says it in singular form, but that could be just some legal jargon in the way it was written. This time, we do not know if there was one or more other children involved. The case is set for trial for May 22nd, and fingers crossed that there are no delays and we actually get to see some of the evidence that the state has. But whether it's one child or it's multiple children, who are we talking? There are other adopted children, they're biological children, or is it a completely different minor? Niece, nephew, neighbor, babysitter? I'm guessing it's going to come down to one or more of the other children in the home. You see, murder is done in privacy and secrecy. So if the murder took place in the home, then probably we're looking at one or more of the children that resided there. And I believe that the next two oldest children over little Orrin and Orson were the other adopted children, and the oldest, I believe, are both biological. And, they have really kept their ages under wraps, and we don't know a lot about any of those other children, and rightfully so. At this time, they remain in state custody where they've been since the other two little boys disappeared. Isn't it interesting that they are in state custody even though some, I believe multiple family members on either side hold active foster parents licenses? That's interesting. So when this incident occurred, it is clear that these two forced one or more children to help in the crime. Why? Well, we talked in the last video a little bit that it could be as simple as, a child or children saw something and maybe they thought a good way to keep them from telling anybody what they saw was make them be involved. And then they had some leverage. Hey, you keep your mouth shut because you'll go to jail too. You were involved. Or is it something even more sinister? You see, the state has no bodies, yet they believe they're going to get a conviction, which means they have some damn good evidence. What is it? We know that there's electronic evidence or digital evidence. So are we talking just cell phones? These two might not be the brightest bulbs on the Christmas tree, but I don't imagine that they were texting each other about the crime. Hey, can you believe what we did? Nope. I don't think that happened. So what else could it be? Is there video footage? And I know that is literally the thought of it going to give me nightmares. And I'm sorry for even putting that thought in your head. But I'm wondering, is this something more than Trazelle was pissed off and beat the baby? And maybe then the other kid saw it and he figured, well, I got to dispose of him too. What happened? What happened in that house of horrors? Was this a case where these two did it on purpose? A lot of people always thought it was weird that it was two children, because even if it was child abuse, if you were beating one child and God forbid, he hit his head or something happened and you covered it up, you didn't want to tell anybody, that's one scenario. But the thought that it was two children was always a little weird. I think a lot of us just started to assume that the other kid saw it, so they figured like, oh, got to get rid of him too, now he's a witness. But that was always like chilling, right? Because if one was an accident, accident. I mean, it's child abuse, but you know what I mean? Like if you didn't intend death or even extreme bodily harm, something went wrong, something horrible happened. The other one would be like there's nothing wrong with him and now you have to just like take him out because he saw what happened. I mean, that was always like a chilling thought. Now you wonder if they're sick enough, demented enough, and evil enough under their leadership and through threats induce the help of a minor/minors to help in the crime. They're sick enough to do it intentionally, and they are sick enough to tape it, and they are sick enough to profit off of it. Did they make a snuff film? Did they do this on purpose for money reasons? I'm working overtime here, okay, with the mind. I am trying to wrap my mind around what we are hearing. It also has come out that Trazelle was threatening people not to say anything, not to talk to the authorities, okay? In that affidavit, he is accused of threatening potential witnesses. So now I'm thinking, what the hell do you mean witnesses? What witnesses? Like they knew about it or they just suspected it? Or was it something like they were just going to say they hadn't seen the kids in, a couple of months? Because now they're saying 3 months from the time of alleged death to the time that they were reported missing, which, by the way, takes them out of California City and puts them back in Bakersfield. So who are these witnesses? Family? Friends? And what did they know? What was he threatening them about? Something as innocent as just saying they hadn't seen the kids in a long time? Or did they actually know something? And is somebody else involved? I mean, is this going to snowball? Is this going to be a chain reaction? Will more arrests come? What the hell was going on over there? So for anybody who actually thinks that there's no way they can wrap their mind around how psychotic somebody has to be to have other children help, I want to remind you this has happened before. So I'm going to look down and make sure I get the name right. Sylvia Likens, Likens, if you want to look it up. So back in October of 1965, she was staying with a woman by the name of Gertrude. I'm going to murder this last name. Oh, bad choice of words. I'm sorry. Baniszewski. And she wasn't like a licensed foster parent or anything else, but she kind of knew the father, and he put Sylvia, who was, I believe, around 12 or 13 years old, and a younger sister in Gertrude's care temporarily while he was off, I believe, working and trying to make money. He didn't have much money, and, he needed somebody to watch these kids. Well, for some reason, Gertrude had it out for this girl, Sylvia. I'm not sure what the issue was, but she was abusing her so badly, beating her, using her as pretty much like a slave in the house, whatever. At some point, the girl was so badly injured, she was like locked down in the basement, that she kind of was left to rot. Okay, she was just kind of left in the basement. She was no longer even kind of participating in the household at all. Well, Gertrude ended up having her own children as well as neighborhood children come and help abuse this girl. I'm not even joking. I actually saw 2 versions of the movie. And I actually, one of them I couldn't even finish because it was so gruesome and so graphic. I can take like horror movies and, things that are kind of unrealistic. I have a hard time with things that I know are based on a true story or, very realistic, brutal violence. It turns my stomach. So I had a hard time watching these films because I knew this really happened to this girl. And we're not talking 1 or 2 kids. We're talking like there was like a whole gaggle of neighborhood kids and her other kids who helped in the abuse of this girl to the point that she died from her injuries. And I believe some of the older kids were actually charged in it, even though the ringleader was Miss Gertrude. And I don't think we ever actually found out why she had them help, but I wonder if it was the same type of thing. Like, did she just, she just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Nobody can tell on me if you see anything because you're all involved. I don't know. That was a long time ago, but it's a heart-wrenching story, and you can Google it and read it. It's really disturbing, and it will really upset you. But we could be just looking at another case of that. At this point, like I said, we don't know if it's one or more of the children in the West home. We don't know if it's the other adopted children that maybe Trazelle and Jackie thought, like I said, would be more likely to turn on them and tell than their biological children, and the biological children weren't involved, or maybe because they were the oldest, the biological children, they either A, made them help because they were for sure old enough to know what the hell was going on, or was it some like demented, like blood ties kind of thing? Like, you get in here, we're fam, like you get in here and, we're all in this together. One goes down, we all go down. I don't know. I don't know at this point. Even though it's second-degree murder, a lot of things in this case are just starting to point towards less of an accident. And again, when I say accident, I get that child abuse is not accidental, but people don't typically mean for even harsh corporal punishment or abuse to turn deadly. That's why I'm using the word accident. I don't know, I feel like it's leaning towards less of an accident and something planned or intentional. And maybe second degree was all they felt like they could nail them with right now. I don't know. I mean, they only have one shot. They don't convict them, they walk, and they can't be charged again for this crime. Double jeopardy. So I'm guessing that the state, the way they presented in their press conference, they feel really sure that they have enough evidence to convict these two. So what do they have? What do they have? Well, both the house in Bakersfield and the house in California City were searched multiple times. They're saying they have physical evidence as well as digital evidence. The physical evidence, one can only guess, would be some kind of DNA or some kind of blood traces. Even if you clean up a crime scene, unless you're like a professional, most of us are going to leave stuff behind. They use luminol, so they likely have some physical proof, whether that house was recarpeted, I don't care if it was repainted, I don't care what all, I don't care if they bleached down every last piece of it. That house that they lived in previously, where we now know is most likely the murder scene, is still going to have some traces there. And as far as digital evidence, we know they took phones. I think at some point they talked about laptops, and we don't know what else. But was there digital evidence of the actual crime? That would be horrifying, but it sure would seal a conviction, wouldn't it? And if you are that damn certain that you can get a conviction without bodies, you have some pretty good evidence that you're sitting on. And I, for one, can't wait to hear what it is. I've always found it really interesting that these kids went into state custody, even though I believe there's talk that Jacqueline's mother may possibly have had foster children. I mean, there was even some talk that Jacqueline herself had been adopted through the system. Allegations. But we know Wanda West was a foster parent, so why didn't the children go to her? At the very least, her biological grandchildren should have went to her, even if, they thought the previously adopted children should go back into the state because that's where they originally came from. And if the state didn't feel comfortable with, rehoming them, within the family of the adopted parents at this time, you would think in the very least she would have got the biological grandchildren. I've always wondered about that. Why didn't they give them to her? Does Wanda know something? Is Wanda one of those witnesses that came forward or broke under interrogation? Is she one of the ones that Trazelle threatened? Is she involved? What the hell is going on with this family? For people that have all these children that are not biologically theirs, it certainly doesn't seem like it's because they're just so warm and fuzzy and they just love helping children. I mean, no offense, Wanda, but you were kind of as cold as Trazelle and Jackie, during the time that those boys first went missing. I didn't see tears. Matter of fact, if you remember when she finally spoke out, I think she wrote like a long letter. If I recall, the letter kind of spent half of its time talking about how wonderful she is and all the things that she's overcome in her life, and how she's excelled at all these different things despite all of the hurdles she's had in her life. And then there was like this much about like, we really miss the boys. Hope you find them. So what is going on with these people? Tell me your thoughts. Listen, I feel like I can start throwing out some more theories and throwing out some more conspiracies because the last one ended up being absolutely correct. And I thought, even me personally, and I was the one saying it, and I thought that one was probably nutty and wasn't going to, pan out to be true. Because who in the hell, under their leadership and through threats, induces minors to help in the murder of two small children in their own home? What the hell, guys? So what's going on with this family? What kind of evidence do you think that the state has that they are so sure that they're going to get a conviction without bodies? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the digital evidence? Do you think that it's simply text messages and, what have you? Or do you think something darker and more grisly is going to come out of this? Is this just the beginning of a monstrous story that is going to just keep throwing more and more horrific details at us until we uncover something from the actual depths of hell with these two? Let me know what your thoughts are, and I will see you soon. Bye.